Coming up on Transitions, as I promised in my last video, here's my bio tribute to Gordon Lightfoot. Roll intro. Hello there, Sully here, the retired tanky anchor. Welcome to Transitions. Subscribe, yada yada yada. Like, yada yada yada. Share, yada yada yada. Why do I need to tell you this over and over again? Well, because the people who tell you how to make YouTube videos say that you need a call to action. So, take action right now. Subscribe, like, and share already. Jeez. Okay, when I set out to do this video, I had a rather lengthy monologue which cataloged the career of Gordon Lightfoot. And after several attempts, I decided it was too long. So, I started from scratch. It's still kind of long, but I'm happy with the song I chose, and I think you'll like it. So, find a comfy chair, open up your favorite beverage, and be sure to watch this all the way through. I think you'll be happy to make that choice. Here goes. Gordon Meredith Lightfoot Jr. was born November 17, 1938, to Jessie Vic Trill Lightfoot and Gordon Lightfoot Sr., who owned a local dry cleaning business. He was born in Orillia, Ontario, and he is credited with helping define the folk pop sound of the 1960s and 70s. He is often referred to as Canada's greatest songwriter and is known internationally as a folk rock legend. His mother recognized his musical talent early on and schooled him into a successful child performer. In fact, his first public performance was singing Turalura Lura in grade 4, which was broadcast over the school's public address system on a Parents' Day event. That led to a career which has spanned almost 7 decades, and at the age of 83, he continues to perform and release albums. His songs have been recorded by artists such as Bob Dylan, Maria Muldaur, Jimmy Buffett, Bruce Cockburn, and many others. Ian and Sylvia Tyson recorded Early Morning Rain and For Love and Me, and a year later, both songs were recorded by Peter, Paul, and Mary. Other performers who recorded one or both of these songs include Elvis Presley, Chad and Jeremy, George Hamilton IV, the Clancy Brothers, and the Johnny Man Stingers. Established recording artists such as Marty Robbins, Leroy Van Dyke, Judy Collins, Richie Havens, and Spider Turner, as well as the Kingston Trio, all have achieved chart success with Gordon Lightfoot's material. He became one of the first Canadian songwriters to achieve definitive homegrown stardom without having to actually move permanently to the United States to get it. In 1967, to kick off Canada's centennial year, the CBC commissioned Lightfoot to write the song Canadian Railroad Trilogy. And his albums from time to time are well received abroad, but never produced any hit singles outside of Canada. He always remained better known as a songwriter rather than a performer. During the 1970s, Lightfoot's songs covered a wide range of subjects, including Don Quixote, about Miguel Cervantes' famous literary character, Ode to Big Blue, about the widespread killing of whales, Beautiful, about the simple joys of love, Carefree Highway, about the freedom of the open road, Protocol, about the futility of war, and Alberta Bound, which was inspired by a lonely teenage girl named Grace, whom he met on a bus while traveling to Calgary in 1971. Now, in 1972, Lightfoot contracted Bell's palsy and left his face partially paralyzed for a time. That affliction curtailed his touring schedule, but he nevertheless continued to deliver major hits. In June of 1974, his classic single Sundown from the album of the same name went to number 1 on both the American and Canadian charts. That would be his only number 1 hit in the United States, by the way. In late November of 1975, while reading a Newsweek magazine article about the loss of the SS Edmund Fitzgerald, which sank on November 10th of 1975. Um, he was moved by that article, and he wrote that song, "The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald," which was released the following year, substantially based on facts in that article, and it reached number 2 in the United States on the Billboard chart and was a number 1 hit in Canada. Lightfoot appeared at several 25th anniversary memorial services of the sinking and continues personal contact with the family members of the men who perished on the Edmund Fitzgerald. Sundown and "The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald" both continue to receive heavy airplay on many classic rock stations. And in 1978, Lightfoot had another top 40 hit on the United States Hot 100, a re-recorded version of "The Circle is Small," which reached as high as number 33. And during the 1980s and 1990s, he recorded 6 more original albums and a compilation album for Warner Brothers Reprise. Now, this is interesting. In April of 1987, Lightfoot filed lawsuit against composer Michael Masser, claiming that Masser's melody for the song "The Greatest Love of All," versions of which were recorded and released by both George Benson in 1977 and the more widely known 1985 version by Whitney Houston, stolen 24 bars from Lightfoot's 1971 hit song "If You Could Read My Mind." The transitional section that begins, "I decided long ago never to walk in anyone's shadow" of the Master song has the same melody as "I never thought I could feel this way, and I got to say that I just don't get it." Lightfoot later said that he did not want people thinking that he had stolen the melody from Masser, and the case was settled out of court, and Masser, of course, issued a public apology. At the 1988 Calgary Olympics, Lightfoot performed with noted Canadian artist Ian Tyson during the opening ceremonies, and during the 1990s, that's when Lightfoot started going back to his acoustic roots. He recorded 2 albums. In 1999, Rhino Records released Songbook, a 4 CD box set of Lightfoot recordings with rare and unreleased tracks from the 1960s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, plus a small hardback booklet, which described how he created his songs and gave facts about his song. In April of 2000, Lightfoot taped a live concert in Reno, Nevada. This 1-hour show was broadcast by the CBC in October of that year, and a PBS special across the United States around the same time. PBS stations offered a videotape of the concert as a pledge gift. In April of 2001, Lightfoot performed at the Tin Pan South Legends concert at Ryman Auditorium in Nashville, closing the show. And in May of that year, he performed "Ring Them Bells" at Massey Hall in honor of Bob Dylan's 60th birthday. Now, by January of 2002, Lightfoot had written 30 new songs for his next studio album. He recorded guitar and vocal demos of some of these songs. In September, before the second concert of a 2-night stand in his hometown of Aurelio, Lightfoot suffered severe stomach pains and was airlifted to McMaster Medical Center in Hamilton, Ontario, where he underwent emergency vascular surgery for a ruptured abdominal aortic aneurysm. He endured a 6-week coma, and all of his remaining concert dates for that year were canceled. It was 3 months in the hospital before Lightfoot was finally allowed to come home in December. The following year, he underwent follow-up surgery to continue treatment of this condition. In November of that year, he signed a new recording contract with Linus Entertainment and began rehearsing with his band for the first time since his illness. In January of 2004, he completed work on the album Harmony, which he had mostly recorded prior to his illness. And that album was released on his new home label of Linus Records on May 11th of that year. It was his 20th original album and included single and new video for "Inspiration Lady." And he made a surprise comeback in July of 2004 at Mariposa in Aurelia, performing "I'll Tag Along" solo. August of that year, he performed a 5-song solo set in Peterborough, Ontario at a flood relief benefit. And in November, he made his long-awaited return to the concert stage with 2 sold-out benefit shows in Hamilton, Ontario. He returned to the music business with his new album selling well, and did an appearance on Canadian Idol, where the 6 top contestants each performed a song of his, culminating in a group performance of Canadian Railroad Trilogy. And in 2005, he set out on a low-key tour, which he called the Better Late Than Never tour. Excuse me. Which brings us to September of 2006. In the middle of a performance, he suffered a minor stroke that left him without the use of the middle and ring finger on his right hand. He returned to performing 9 days later and for a brief time used a substitute guitarist for the more difficult work. Full recovery took a little longer. It took him about 7 or 8 months to regain full use of his right hand. And then after that, he played all the guitar parts in concert as he originally wrote them and continues to perform. In February of 2010, he was the victim of a death hoax originating from Twitter when then CTV journalist David Aiken posed on Twitter that and on Facebook that Lightfoot had died. Well, he happened to be at a dental appointment at the time. The rumors were spread, and he found out that he had died while listening to the radio on his drive home. And much like Mark Twain, who once said the rumor of his death were greatly exaggerated, Lightfoot phoned radio station CJOB and spoke to DJ Charles Adler. And he said that he was, in fact, alive and well. In 2012, at the 100th Grey Cup, Lightfoot performed Canadian Railroad Trilogy, which was extremely well received. And he also played Canada's 150th birthday celebration on Parliament Hill, July 1st of 2017, introduced by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who mentioned that Mr. Lightfoot had played the same stage exactly 50 years earlier during Canada's 100th birthday. He said in 2016 that he was not planning to return to songwriter later in life, as he had concluded that it was such an isolating thing for him earlier in his career and affected his family life. But that all changed in 2019 when he announced plans for a new studio album for the first time in nearly 2 decades. That album, released March 20th, 2020, was called Solo. He had no accompaniment of other musicians. It was his 21st studio album, released more than 54 years after his debut album and just at the beginning of the COVID pandemic. His career spanned more than 6 decades, producing more than 200 recordings. His songs were recorded, by so many various artists: Bob Dylan, Gene Clark, Dan Fogelberg, Jimmy Buffett, Jim Croce, and the Canadian band Guess Who actually recorded a song called Lightfoot on their 1968 album We Feel Soul, the lyrics of which were mostly Lightfoot song titles. In June of 2017, he was rated 5th in the CBC's list of the 25 best Canadian songwriters ever. He was a particular favorite, in fact, an idol of the late Stan Rogers. He cited Lightfoot as a major influence. And Rogers finally got to meet Lightfoot shortly before his tragic death in 1983 in an airline fire. Now, as of the making of this video, Lightfoot is still an active performer, and you can find many of his performances on YouTube. So now, with further ado, my cover of Steel Rail Blues, and I hope you like it.
Letter from a girl who found the time to write to her lonesome boy who's somewheres in the night. Send me a railroad ticket to take me to her loving arms, and a big steel rail gonna carry me home to the one I love. Well, I've been out here many long days, haven't found a place that I can call my own. Not a 2-bit bed to lay my body on. I've been stood up, I've been shook down, I've been dragged into the sand, and the big steel rail gonna carry me home to the one I love. Well, I've been uptight most every night, walking along the streets of this old town. Not a friend around to tell the troubles to. My good old car, she done broke down 'cause I drove it to the ground. Now the big steel rail gonna carry me home to the one I love. Well, look over yonder across the plain, big drive wheels are pounding along the ground. Gonna get on board and I'll be homeward bound. I ain't had a home-cooked meal, I know I need one now, and the big steel rail gonna carry me home to the one I love. Standing on the broad highway, won't you give her a ride? Lonesome boy who missed the train last night, went into town for one last round, and I gambled my ticket away. That big steel rail won't carry me home to the one I love.
Well, if you thought that narration was long, you should have seen it before I pared it down. Still ran kind of long. Yeah, sorry about that. I hope at least you learned something. For Transitions, I'm Sully, the retired tanky anchor. Safe and happy travels.